Dear Ajahn, did the lady in Auschwitz, whose twin sister was killed, describe the process she went through to be able to forgive the perpetrator? Can you recommend some practices that can help us to forgive those who have hurt, harmed us, especially if we have to deal with them daily or regularly and they continue to repeat the same problematic behavior? Thank you. Now, there's a few cases you collect in life about amazing forgiveness stories, and of course that was one of them. And it's what it does, how she does that, and it takes a lot of reflection. The anger was just making her, she used to say, the anger was making her a victim every day, every time she thought of that or encountered that. It really hurt her. And after a while, it's like you feel that, why do I allow these people to continue hurting me? And you do have a choice. And that's the amazing thing which she discovered. She had a choice not to hate or to let go, to be able to forgive. That she could do it. And that was a surprising thing. Once she realized she could, she had to not just hide it away, but to do something. And that was amazing that she could actually invite this guy over to Auschwitz and do the forgiveness ceremony there, where she forgave this man. And it was so many years ago. And as I also say that, why do we have to hold the past, even the terrible things we've done in the past, to actually defeat our present and our future? It makes no sense when you look at it that way. And then she managed to forgive him. And then when she did forgive him face to face, in the place where all these terrible things happened, that made her the victor, not the victim. And it proved to me another of these amazing cases where anything can be forgiven. And when that happens, it's really inspiring. It's almost like sacred or holy when somebody can do such forgiveness, even though it's hurt so much. It appears so rare. And the thing is that she realized, I never did anything wrong. Why should I allow this event in the past to keep sort of hurting me, even though it was maybe 40, 50 years ago? And the other amazing sense of healing, or case of healing, which I often quote, was in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was done in South Africa. They managed to have a law which was the opposite of revenge. It was to say, if you can say in a court exactly what you did, be really honest, even if it was extrajudicial killings and torture and terrible stuff you did, if you confess it honestly, then there'll be amnesty. And the idea was that once the truth can be, spoken, and people can find out what actually happened, there we can understand why on earth do we do such things. We can find solutions once there's honesty. And then, so on one of these episodes, there was a white South African police officer who was in the court, and he was standing up and just explaining how he'd tortured and murdered one of these black African ANC activists. And I remember reading some of the testimony, and it was really gross. And it just made me shiver. And one of the things they would do, please excuse me, and it's gross, they used to take out this man's male organ and just bang a nail through it onto the desk, to show they were serious. It's a gross thing to do. And anyway, he was describing, apparently, that while he was confessing what he did, it was obviously really difficult for anyone to actually to say that, publicly. He was shaking, crying, and it was just emotional turmoil for him. And then when he'd finished his testimony, of how he was responsible for torturing and killing this Black African National Congress member. The whole family were there listening, especially his widow, his wife. And the wife, she said that all she remembered was in the middle of the night, her husband was, police officers came in and arrested her husband, and she didn't know where he went or what happened to him. And this was the first time she found out, that he was murdered. You can actually call it murder, even though it's by the policeman, extrajudicial. And that the first time she knew what had happened. And you can kind of imagine how that must feel. I mean, not really imagine, but you can see just the trauma of that. And then, when her testimony was finished, she jumped over the barrier. She evaded security guards, and she went for him. Ran right to him. And they had the security guards then, the barrier between the person confessing the offence and the family who may be listening. She evaded all of those, went right up to him and gave him this enormous hug and said, "I forgive you." It was totally unexpected. And she meant it. Enough of the violence. Revenge just continues this cycle of violence and hurt and tears almost indefinitely. She decided to stop it. She hugged him. This white police officer, this black South African activist widow, just hugged. Apparently everybody just burst into tears. They couldn't help it. And I often quote that. If that can be forgiven, what else can't be forgiven? Basically, you can forgive anything. And it's really inspiring when somebody does that. It gives hope for the world. No more wars. No more wars in the family, in the community. So anyway, how she did that, you have to ask her. The fact it could be done is step number one. To know that you can forgive, and it's totally beneficial on both sides. To know that you can be free of that pain from the past. You don't need to punish others, you don't need to punish yourself. And that's inspiring for me. All the pain which people have in the past, the trauma they have, can't we sort of lessen it by forgiveness? Never have any. People think, they'll do the same again. They don't. When you confess it in public like that, people just feel embarrassed, ashamed. When you hide it, that's when they can fester and grow and create more bad actions in the future. So that's one of the beautiful things to do. To know it can be forgiven. You can let go of it.